Chapter 4. Wednesday didn't notice this thing slipping into her backpack when she picked it up and swung it over her shoulders. She wore a black dress with long sleeves, black stockings and black sneaker boots, and her usual braided pigtails. When she got to the docks, Tyler was already waiting, holding a bunch of dead roses. "Nice touch," she said, taking them. They took the boat out to Raven Island. When Tyler opened the door to the crypt, it was decorated with Christmas lights and fairy lights, casting a soft glow. Dinner was takeout from a local diner, plus a dark chocolate cake. "So, from what I heard, you used to be a big bully," Wednesday said as she looked around. "What happened to your tough guy streak?" "Well, after we assaulted Xavier, his dad threatened to sue. The mayor managed to get the charges dropped, but Lucas and the others used me as a scapegoat. I was the only one sent to boot camp," Tyler said, begrudgingly. "Speaking of which, I'm going out of town soon. The Nevermore fencing team is going to the regional tournament," he added. "It's amazing how long your school has gone on a losing streak," Wednesday replied. Tyler smiled. "I'm sure they'll finally win with you on the team." "We'll see," she said. "I plan to use it as my means of escape." Tyler paused. "You're leaving?" "That's the plan," she said simply. "What about us?" he asked, clearly hurt. "What about it?" she replied casually. "We just started dating, and now you're telling me you're planning to leave." "I don't understand why you're getting upset," Wednesday said, meeting his eyes with no emotion whatsoever. "I can't interpret your emotional Morse code." Tyler took a breath, trying to stay calm. "Then let me spell it out. I thought we liked each other. You said yes to this date. Now you're telling me you're leaving. Am I just some pawn in a game you're playing?" "I'm just leaving before someone gets hurt," she said. "You're hurting me before I even get the chance to hurt you." "Is that it?" "No, that's not what I meant." She paused. "This school, this educational penitentiary, is suffocating. And now, you're stopping me from leaving." Tyler stepped closer and gently grabbed her shoulders. "Don't go. Please don't go, Wednesday." He pulled her into his chest. She didn't resist. The ride back across the lake was quiet. Wednesday didn't say a word. Tyler kept his eyes on the water. Then suddenly, the boat jolted. "What was that?" she said quickly. "I didn't hit anything." Before he could finish, the boat capsized. A rare blue blood moon hung eerily above them, casting a haunting red-blue glow over the river as Tyler and Wednesday plunged beneath the surface. The water was freezing. "Wednesday!" Tyler shouted as he broke through the surface, gasping for breath. "Tyler," she called back, swimming toward him. But just as their hands reached for each other, a sudden wave slammed into her, pushing her under. "Wednesday," he cried, diving toward where she vanished. Underneath, she struggled. It wasn't just the river, it was something else, something unnatural, pulling her down, pushing her face into the current like she was being waterboarded. She kicked and thrashed, but the water around her felt heavy, thick, magnetic, like hands dragging her into the depths. Tyler reached her, grabbing her wrist and yanking hard. It felt like a tug-of-war with the river itself, the current pulling her deeper as he tried to pull her up. Then, as suddenly as it began, the force vanished. Gasping, he hauled her to the surface and swam toward the docks. But the canoes were gone. The dock itself, it looked wrong or gone entirely. There was no time to think about it. Tyler powered forward until he reached the shallow riverside and pulled Wednesday onto the muddy shore. "Wednesday," he called again, breathless, as he dropped beside her. She wasn't breathing. Tyler leaned down and began mouth-to-mouth, panic burning in his chest. After a moment, she choked, sputtered, and coughed up a lungful of river water. Relief crashed over him like a wave. He gathered her against him, holding her tightly to his chest as her breathing steadied. They sat there in silence beneath the eerie light of a full moon. Neither noticed how strangely quiet the forest had become, or how the river behind them no longer flowed the same way. Wednesday and Tyler walked for hours. The moon had dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the damp forest floor. The only sound was the crunch of wet leaves beneath their shoes and the occasional sigh of wind that made the trees groan like old bones. Wednesday slowed to a stop, narrowing her eyes at the darkness around them. "We should have reached the lights of Nevermore by now," she muttered. She turned to Tyler. "Please tell me you remember where you parked your car. Because I'm fairly certain we're supposed to be standing in the quad." Tyler looked around, brows furrowed. "We followed the shoreline exactly. I swear I parked near the willow trees." "And yet," Wednesday said, voice low, "we're surrounded by trees that haven't grown near the school in decades." They pressed on, hoping to find something, anything familiar. After another hour of wandering in circles through thickening mist, they stumbled across the mouth of a shallow cave tucked into a hillside. "We'll rest here," Wednesday said, stepping inside. "At sunrise, we reassess." Tyler collapsed onto a patch of dry moss, exhausted. But sleep didn't last long. "Holy sh!" Tyler jolted upright. A pale hand was tapping him persistently on the forehead. "Disembodied. Agile. Silent. Thing," Wednesday said, her tone more relieved than surprised as she stirred awake. "Tyler, this is Thing. Thing, Tyler." "Great," Tyler muttered, watching the sentient hand skitter back to her side. "Your severed hand has better GPS than I do." Wednesday sat up and pulled her soaked backpack closer. She rummaged through it, her fingers brushing past tasers, throwing knives, brass knuckles, and other questionable implements of defense until she found the old leather-bound spellbook she had borrowed from Pilgrim World. Its pages were water-stained, but still legible. "Why do you have that?" Tyler asked. "I took it on a hunch," Wednesday replied, flipping to a marked page. "Something about the lunar alignment last night felt unwholesome." When morning finally came, they emerged from the cave. The fog had lifted, but the world still didn't look right. No familiar roads. No lights. No Nevermore. No car. "We should have stumbled into the main road by now," Tyler said, uneasy. "Exactly," Wednesday replied, scanning the horizon. "Which means either we've been abducted by very thorough LARPers, or we're not in our timeline anymore." Then, they spotted it, smoke curling into the sky from beyond the trees. They ran toward it, hope flickering. But as they reached the edge of the clearing, Wednesday pulled Tyler behind a tree and froze. They weren't in Jericho anymore. Wooden cabins with thatched or shingled roofs. Dirt roads. No power lines. No modern structures. Just settlers in long, modest garments moving between buildings and tending to small fires and livestock. "Where the hell are we?" Tyler whispered. "I believe the more appropriate question is when," Wednesday muttered. The people below were clothed in rough wool and linen. The women wore bodices and ankle-length skirts, their shoulders modestly covered by coifs and kerchiefs. Most had aprons and long sleeves, even in the warmth of the morning. The men wore simple breeches, waistcoats, and linen shirts. Some had leather boots while others were barefoot. The dominant colors were earth tones, muddy browns, smoky grays, dark greens. No one wore black and white except one stern-looking man near the well, who looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a Puritan sermon. "So, they didn't all wear black and white?" Tyler asked. Wednesday raised a brow. "Only the overly religious or those with something to prove. The rest dressed for survival, not aesthetic." She crept closer to a row of cabins where clean clothes hung drying on a rope line. With the swiftness of a crow plucking a shiny object, she snatched a worn brown coat and a tattered linen cloak. "Put this on." She tossed the coat to Tyler. "Your hoodie makes you look like a time-traveling outlaw." "What about you?" he asked, pulling the coat over his damp clothes. Wednesday wrapped herself in a white shawl she had found hanging nearby. It draped over her black dress, just enough to tone down the gothic silhouette. "This should keep the pitchforks at bay," she said. Thing peeked out of her backpack and gave a skeptical tap against her shoulder. "I know," she said. "It's not my look." The village bell rang in the distance and a few men emerged from a barn carrying muskets. Tyler leaned in. "Should we head into town?" Wednesday smirked faintly. Where is your sense of adventure? Wednesday and Tyler walked out of the village, their borrowed clothes heavy with damp and dirt. Tyler wrinkled his nose and muttered, I think I liked the 1620s version at Pilgrim World better. Cleaner. Smelled less like goat. I can't believe they don't all wear black and white, he added with a grin. You'd have fit right in. Wednesday glanced at him, unamused. You need to start distinguishing fact from fiction, Tyler. Life rarely imitates theme parks. They continued walking along a thin, muddy path just beyond the tree line. The village behind them was still buzzing with movement, but out here the woods grew quieter. Wednesday, we need to find someone who can help us get back, Tyler said, his fingers brushing hers before slipping fully into her hand. No one except a witch would have that kind of knowledge, she replied, her voice low. And unfortunately, during this period, witches are either hiding, being hunted, or burning. Then maybe we should find the outcasts, Tyler whispered. If they're already in hiding, maybe one of them knows something. Magic. Spells. Time rifts. Wednesday's eyes lit with reluctant agreement. That's not an idiotic idea. They wandered until Tyler froze, his eyes landing on a crumbling, timber-framed building. That's the meeting house, he said. I read about those. Puritans held trials there. They circled toward the back, staying hidden behind barrels and crumbling stacks of firewood. That's when they saw the hooded figure. He moved like he didn't want to be seen, slipping through shadows behind the building. Tyler made to approach, but Wednesday was faster. She grabbed the man's arm, twisting it behind him with practiced precision. He turned, startled, his face pale beneath the hood. His eyes flashed faintly red. Goody, he said, staring at Wednesday like he'd seen a ghost. We're so sorry to bother you, Mr. Vampire. Sir, Tyler blurted. I'm Tyler Galpin, and this is Wednesday Addams. We're, lost. And hoping you might help us find someone who can help us get out of this town. Addams? The man asked, narrowing his eyes. Single or double D? Double, Wednesday and Tyler said in unison. The vampire's expression changed. Come with me. As they followed him, he glanced over his shoulder. You shouldn't be wandering the town. Things are tense right now. Superstitions, trials, even I don't stay long. They trekked through a thicket of trees until the path gave way to underbrush and silence. Under a tangle of dead branches and low-hanging shrubs, a nearly invisible cabin appeared, old, sunken, half swallowed by nature. This way, he said, pushing open the door with a creak. The cabin creaked as they stepped inside. To their surprise, the small space was crammed with outcasts, vampires, seers, sirens, and others harder to name, arguing in overlapping voices. They'll burn us all if we don't show. It's a trap. Joseph Crackstone speaks with a forked tongue. He wants blood. He promised safe passage. You trust a man who thinks the earth is flat and dreams of drowning witches in rivers? At the center of it all stood a girl who looked unsettlingly familiar to Wednesday. Same sharp cheekbones. Same dark eyes. But she was blonde. And wore color, a faded orange, dress that looked homemade but clean, like someone trying to blend into a world that hated them. She shouted above the chaos, her voice fierce and urgent. We cannot go to the assembly. They want a public sacrifice. Wednesday froze, heart lurching. The girl from my dreams. She and Tyler stayed near the back, half hidden in the shadows of the doorway, waiting for the chaos to die down. Things slipped out of Wednesday's damp backpack and scuttled across the floor, leaping onto the rough-hewn table in the center. He paused dramatically, then pointed at Goody, tapping insistently on the wood. All heads turned. I'm aware she looks like me, Wednesday said coldly, stepping forward, her brows furrowed. Don't act like you've never seen a mirror thing. Goody spun to face her, jaw tight. Who brought these outsiders here? The vampire, arms crossed, shrugged. I was under the impression she was a relative of yours, Goody. She says her name is Wednesday Addams. I am an Addams, Wednesday replied, her eyes narrowing as she glared at the vampire. And don't speak for me again. Tension simmered. Tyler stepped forward and spoke gently. We're not trying to cause trouble. We're just lost. Looking for help. That's all. He took Wednesday's hand in his, a grounding gesture that didn't go unnoticed. Goody stared at their hands, then at Wednesday. The resemblance between them was uncanny. Same face, same voice, same fire behind the eyes. But where Goody was the image of colonial restraint and dusty prophecy, Wednesday stood wrapped in black and disdain, a shadow made flesh. I preferred you in my dreams, Wednesday said quietly, almost to herself. You wore white then. You didn't speak like the rest of them. Goody narrowed her eyes. Then you dreamed of someone else. The room fell into a charged silence. Chapter 5. The late afternoon sun filtered weakly through the cracks in the cabin walls, casting dusty beams across the uneven floor. The scent of wood smoke and earth clung to everything. Goody's mother, Mrs. Addams, handed them slices of dark bread. Her face, though lined with wear, carried a softness, a genuine smile that seemed out of place among the tension in the room. Tyler accepted it gratefully, giving a small, polite nod. Thank you, ma'am. Wednesday took the bread wordlessly, her expression a picture of practiced disdain. Goody noticed it all. The way the girl stood rigid, as though too proud or too cautious to accept kindness. The way Tyler's arm never strayed far from her, always resting lightly on her back or brushing her hand as they spoke in hushed tones. Like they were one soul split between two bodies. Like they'd been through something unspeakable. The death-sentient hand, as Goody had taken to calling it, signed frantically between them, pointing, tapping, waving for attention with unmistakable urgency. Goody couldn't understand it, but Wednesday clearly could. She ignored him. But what caught Goody's eye most wasn't the strange hand or the way they never quite relaxed. It was their clothes. Wednesday's white shawl, now dry, barely concealed the dark, unfamiliar fabric of her dress. It shimmered slightly in the fading light, too fine, too tailored. Her black stockings were seamless, and her shoes, they were the strangest of all. Laced tightly, high at the ankle, made from a fabric and rubber that Goody had never seen. Sneaker boots. Practical but out of time. Expensive. And around her neck, Goody saw Wednesday's fingers toy absently with a strange metallic emblem. A medallion circular, etched with a letter that could have been a W or an M, depending on how it spun. It caught the light and gleamed like something sacred. Or cursed. Tyler made no effort to hide. His jacket, shirt, the strange blue denim trousers, everything about him screamed foreign. His shoes were thick, rubber-soled, not hand-stitched. And his speech, though kind, was peppered with casualness and rhythm unlike anything Goody had ever heard. They are not from here, Goody thought. And not just from another town. Her mother's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Goody, Mrs. Addams called gently from the back corner. She stepped closer, crouching near the trunk where they kept their dried herbs and healing roots. I've made my decision. I'll be attending the assembly with the others. Goody froze. You can't be serious. We have to try. There's talk of easing the banishment. Perhaps even recognition. Her mother smiled, as though the impossible might be true. Goody's voice sharpened. Or perhaps they'll light the pyres higher than before. Her mother stood, placing a hand on her shoulder. You must learn to trust people, Goody. Not every path leads to fire. And with that, she turned and joined the others who had chosen to attend. One by one, the outcasts filed out of the cabin, disappearing into the orange glow of the setting sun. Goody stood silently for a long moment, watching the doorway. Then she turned her gaze slowly toward Wednesday and Tyler, still whispering, still out of place. Goody hadn't meant to eavesdrop. But as she approached, she couldn't help but hear Wednesday and Tyler speaking in hushed urgency by the far corner of the room. I still can't believe how people today actually praise him, Tyler said. In present-day Jericho, Joseph Crackstone is considered a local hero, There's even a statue of him downtown. Wednesday scoffed. History is written by the victors. Or in this case, murderers with a quill. She knelt down and pulled the worn leather spellbook from her soaked backpack, flipping it open across her lap. At first glance, it had seemed like a kitschy souvenir, Pilgrim World's idea of witchy lore bound in cheap leather. But now, the more she turned the pages, the more it felt authentic. The ink bled in strange symbols, written in ancient Latin and alchemical codes she didn't recognize. Tyler sat beside her, wrapping his arm across her shoulders. Is there anything in there that can get us back home? Wednesday didn't look up. We're about to find out. Goody froze in place. Her stomach dropped. That book, it looked exactly like the one she had hidden beneath the floorboards of her own room. The same markings. The same scuffed corners. Her eyes narrowed, heart racing. She stormed across the room and yanked the book from Wednesday's hands. This is my book. Where did you get this? Wednesday shot up. No, it's mine. How can it be yours? This thing is over 400 years old. Wednesday grabbed the book back with both hands, locking eyes with her doppelganger. Maybe that's exactly the point. The two girls tugged viciously, spinning in a chaotic dance of force and stubbornness. The vampire, Marcus, stood, alarmed. Goody, he warned, stepping forward. Don't. Stay out of this, Marcus. Goody snapped, not taking her eyes off Wednesday. Be careful, Tyler said, circling beside them. That book is ancient. Don't rip it. Neither of them listened. Until Goody suddenly released her grip. Wednesday stumbled backward, clutching the book, and fell to the floor. Her eyes went wide. A vision hit her like lightning. She was inside the meeting house. Screams echoed from chained outcasts, the air thick with smoke and fire. Flames devoured the roof and licked the rafters. At the center stood Crackstone, smiling. Wednesday gasped and collapsed. Goody stepped forward, smug. Now maybe next time you'll think before. We need to go, Wednesday said hoarsely, pushing herself up. They're being chained up. Crackstone's going to burn them alive. She took off running. Tyler stared for a second, stunned, then bolted after her. Wednesday. Goody blinked, stunned by the urgency in her voice. She shoved the book into Marcus's hands. Keep it safe, and don't let anyone follow. Then she sprinted after them. They didn't get far. Just as Tyler managed to pull Wednesday into a thick grove of trees to hide, Goody veered wide and was spotted. Men in dark robes descended on her. Goody Addams, one of them bellowed, "You are a witch. Lucifer's mistress herself." Wednesday and Tyler stayed hidden, helpless, watching from the shadows as Crackstone himself stepped forward, eyes blazing with conviction. He ordered Goody thrown into the meeting house with the others. And then, with no hesitation, he lit the torch and tossed it. The screams were instant. Fire curled into the sky. Wednesday turned away, shaking. Tyler took her hand and pulled her into a run. They raced back through the woods, but didn't make it far. Figures surrounded them, outcasts with grim faces and pointed weapons. Stop, one of them ordered. Back to the hideout. Now. They were marched away under the fading light, the smell of fire thick in the air, and the ghost of the outcast screams trailing behind them. Wednesday and Tyler were dragged back to the hideout and shoved into a dark corner. Rough hands tied their wrists and ankles, while angry voices buzzed around them. They're spies. They led Crackstone right to us. They knew the meeting house would burn. No, someone else whispered. They tried to stop it. The room was in chaos, the outcasts torn between fear and blame. That's when the door burst open and Goody walked in. Alive. A stunned silence fell. The crowd rushed toward her, hands reaching out in disbelief and relief. Goody, how did you survive? Did you escape the flames? Did Crackstone let you go? But Goody said nothing. Her face was unreadable. She walked past them without a word, straight toward Wednesday and Tyler, who sat on the floor, stoic, watching. She stopped in front of them. Her eyes narrowed. You're a raven. Wednesday blinked. What? Don't pretend you don't know, Goody said, louder now. You had a vision. You saw what was going to happen. That's why you ran. That's how you knew. Wednesday's expression didn't change. So what if I did? Goody stared at her a moment longer, then turned to the others. Untie them. Before anyone could move, Wednesday stood and held out the ropes that had once bound her wrists. No need. I untied us before you arrived. She let the ropes drop with a thud and kicked them aside. Tyler stood as well, brushing off his jacket. Marcus, Goody said sharply, where's my book? It's in your room. Goody headed straight there, pulling up the old floorboard where she always kept it hidden. Her fingers touched the leather cover, and her breath caught. It felt different, familiar, but untouched. She flipped through it. The pages were pristine, untouched by time. She stormed back into the common room and found Wednesday exactly where she expected her, leaning lazily against a support beam, one foot crossed behind the other, flipping through her own copy of the Spellbook with complete calm. Goody raised her book. I see you found your book, Wednesday said without looking up. Indeed I did, Goody replied, eyes narrowing as she sized her up. It seems I'm owed an apology. Wednesday smirked. I admit, it does look remarkably similar. Goody stepped closer. How did you get it back? I had an extra hand. Wednesday gestured toward Thing, who scuttled forward and proudly banged his knuckles on the floor like a knight kneeling to his queen. Handy, Goody muttered, more tired than angry now. You can relax, Wednesday said coolly. We'll stay out of the way. You don't want us caught in the crossfire of your little war. Goody sighed. Exactly. That night, the outcasts gathered to honor those lost in the flames. A candlelit silence filled the hideout, broken only by the occasional sniff or whispered prayer. When it was time to turn in, Tyler approached the shared sleeping room and blinked. Where's the bed? One of the outcasts pointed to a wooden frame covered in worn wool and straw. Tyler blinked again. This is the bed? It's 1620, Wednesday said dryly. What did you expect, memory foam? She then added, a coffin would be more comfortable. The other outcasts were now fully aware of how different they looked, their clean, modern clothes, the way Tyler's jacket glinted faintly in the candlelight, the strange fabric of Wednesday's stockings, her boots. We'll sleep on a pile of straw bales, Wednesday muttered, already heading for the corner. But Goody stopped her. No. You sleep here. With us. Wednesday raised an eyebrow, then looked to Tyler. He gave a small shrug, surrendering to the situation. Thing, Wednesday ordered, keep watch. Thing saluted again and scurried to the nearest window. Wednesday climbed into the bed last, curling into a stiff corpse pose with her arms crossed over her chest and eyes wide open in the dark. Goody, lying just inches away, stared at her for a long moment. It wasn't the strange clothing, the raven sight, or even the fact that they might be from another century. It was the way Wednesday lay there, completely still, like she belonged in a crypt. Goody shivered. Wednesday Addams was the most unsettling person she'd ever met, and somehow she was starting to trust her. Chapter 6. A few days later, Tyler and Wednesday were asked to look after a group of outcast children while the rest attended a secret meeting. It was supposed to be simple, keep them safe, keep them hidden. As the kids picked berries and played near the creek, Tyler asked the question that had been on his mind since they arrived. If Joseph Crackstone won this war, how did Nevermore even survive long enough to get bullied in the present? That question made Wednesday pause. Her face went still, expression unreadable. 400 years is certainly enough time to rewrite history, she finally said. Before Tyler could say anything else, the children started yelling. One of the smaller boys had been dragged into the forest by normies. Wednesday didn't wait. She shot forward, pushing through the trees. Run, she shouted to the kids. Hide. Tyler, get them out of here. What about you? He called out. But she was already gone. A man leapt from behind a tree. Wednesday slammed a sharp rock into his face. Another swung a club at her. She ducked, grabbed his wrist, twisted until it snapped, and kicked his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard. She stabbed him in the side with a bone-handled knife she'd hidden in her sleeve. More came. 5, 6, maybe 7. Tyler and the kids huddled behind a fallen log, watching in horror. They saw her fight them off with nothing but stones, knives, and fury. Her black dress whipped around her like shadows made of fabric, her small frame darting and weaving between grown men. She wasn't just fighting, she was killing. One by one they fell. Blood sprayed across tree trunks and soaked the ground. One of the normies begged for his life. Wednesday didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just ended it. She emerged from the trees a moment later, dragging a body behind her by the foot. She tossed it aside with a dull thud. Tyler stared at her. What the hell was that? Wednesday wiped the blade against her dress. Justice. One of the children, eyes wide with fear, asked in a small voice, "Are you a witch?" Wednesday looked down at her, then glanced back toward the forest where the bodies lay. "No," she said flatly. "I'm an Addams." Unbeknownst to Wednesday, one of the men had gotten away. Bloodied and limping, he took off through the woods, disappearing into the trees before the werewolves arrived. The werewolves came crashing through the underbrush moments later, their noses flaring as they picked up the heavy scent of blood. But when they reached the scene, it was already over. The bodies of the normies lay scattered on the forest floor, faces twisted in pain and horror. And standing among them, calm, still, and soaked in red, was Wednesday Addams. She didn't flinch when they approached. She just turned to the children and asked, "Is everyone accounted for?" The kids ran up to her, eyes shining. They talked over one another excitedly as they explained what had happened, how Wednesday had fought off the bad men, how she saved the boy who was taken. They told the story again on the way back, this time with more detail, more awe. When they returned to the hideout, the other outcast gathered around. The children couldn't wait to tell it again, recounting each moment with wide eyes and flailing arms. Wednesday stood silent in the middle of the room, her hands still stained crimson, the hem of her black dress soaked through. Goody stepped forward, scanning Wednesday slowly from head to toe. Her eyes lingered on the bloodied fingers, the stiff fabric of her skirt, the specks of dirt and red splattered across her collar. The adult outcasts offered their thanks, nodding and murmuring their appreciation. Wednesday didn't seem to hear them. "Does anyone have a towel or cloth?" she asked flatly, glancing down at her dress. "I'd prefer not to let the stain set." Goody blinked. I have a few dresses you could borrow. They're clean." Wednesday narrowed her eyes. "Are any of them black?" Goody looked confused. "Why does it have to be black?" "Because I break into hives whenever I wear a color," Wednesday said without missing a beat. Goody hesitated, then led her to the back and handed her a folded piece of morning attire, deep charcoal gray, nearly black. It was old but clean. "I'll need my dress washed." Immediately, Wednesday added, unfastening her soiled garments. Goody's eyes widened slightly at the sight of Wednesday's undergarments, trim, fitted, and unmistakably black. Even more unsettling was how serious and unashamed Wednesday was about it. "Do you have any black socks?" Wednesday asked as she adjusted the fit of the borrowed gown. "No," Goody said slowly. "Just white ones." "Then I'll keep my stockings on," Wednesday replied, slipping her arms through the sleeves and lacing the bodice tighter than necessary. After helping Wednesday change, Goody stepped back, still trying to make sense of the strange girl standing before her, dressed in black from the inside out, with a demeanor that made even the vampires look tame. Without another word, Goody left the room and called for the rest of the outcasts to gather again. The war had shifted, and everyone could feel it. The communal dinner had settled into a dull rhythm, the scrape of spoons against wooden bowls, the occasional murmur, the crackle of fire in the hearth. The outcasts, wary and grieving, ate quietly until Tyler opened his mouth. "That dress looks breathable," he said, eyeing Wednesday's stiff morning gown. Several heads turned. Wednesday didn't flinch. "It's wool. Rough. Scratchy. I had to wear a full white shift underneath just to keep from blistering my skin. A ripple went through the table. A girl down the road dropped her spoon. One of the elders, a man with a weathered face and graying beard, blinked in disbelief. Talking openly about what a woman wore under her dress? And so flippantly? I've worn coffins more comfortable than this, Wednesday added. Tyler leaned closer, unfazed. Still, I'm guessing you've got black underwear under there too. Gasps broke out this time, quiet but audible. A few people instinctively looked away, as if they had just witnessed something indecent. A young werewolf boy coughed awkwardly and stared hard at his stew. Wednesday turned her gaze to Tyler, calm but sharp. Oh wow, Tyler said, catching her stare. They are black. Now it was silent. In the 1620s, even the word underwear wasn't used publicly. People referred to shifts, petticoats, and linens with vague terms or avoided speaking of them at all. For an unmarried woman to speak so plainly of what she wore beneath her dress, and for a man to comment on it, was not just improper. It was borderline scandalous. The kind of talk that could have landed a woman before a tribunal for lascivious behavior. Wednesday didn't seem to care. The color white offends me. One of the women, perhaps no older than Wednesday, covered her mouth with a hand. Not because she was amused, but because she was shocked. The elder woman beside her gave her a stern look, as if witnessing the moral collapse of a generation. Well, my clothes are clean now, wrinkled, but clean, Tyler went on. What's your excuse for still wearing those stockings? She didn't have black socks, Wednesday said coolly, stabbing a boiled turnip. Oh no! What will the Gothic queen do? Tyler teased. I'm already wearing a white gown under this dress, Wednesday said with finality. I draw the line at white socks. I could be mistaken for someone else. Like who? A dead panda. A boy near the fireplace let out a half-laugh before his older sister elbowed him sharply. Show respect, she hissed under her breath. The outcasts around them had grown very still. In a time where women were expected to be demure, modest, and silent unless spoken to, Wednesday's deadpan sarcasm, Tyler's teasing, and their banter, so modern, so casual, felt like watching a play written by madmen. They spoke of undergarments, bare legs, personal taste, and private matters as if such things were ordinary. Their tone didn't carry shame or secrecy. It was normal for them, and that was what made it so disturbing. At the far end of the table, Goody Addams lowered her bowl and observed them quietly. Not just the words, but the ease with which they said them. The strange comfort they had in each other's presence. Their bluntness was unsettling, but oddly powerful, as if they had never been taught to fear speaking freely. Thing tapped the table sharply, breaking through the low hum of conversation and drawing Wednesday and Tyler's attention. His fingers moved quickly in a flurry of signs. What did we do wrong? Tyler asked, glancing between Wednesday and the hand. He says we look happier than a married couple, Wednesday translated flatly, stabbing her fork into the wooden table with enough force to make a few people flinch. What nonsense are you talking about? She added, narrowing her eyes at Thing and pointing her fork at him like a weapon. Thing signed again, slower this time. He's asking if we're dating, she said. No, Wednesday answered without missing a beat. Yes, Tyler immediately contradicted. We are dating. A confused murmur spread through the room at that word, dating. A few of the older outcasts blinked, brows furrowed, glancing at one another as though trying to decode a foreign language. One whispered, "What's dat ing?" to the person beside them, who shrugged helplessly. Yes, we are, but not right now. Not this second, Wednesday clarified, though her expression remained unchanged, dry and almost bored. That only made it worse. Is this because we haven't kissed yet? Tyler asked, entirely unaware of the way half the room audibly gasped at the word kissed. That did it. It clicked. Like a match striking the edge of old flint, the outcast's confusion ignited into realization. Oh! Someone exclaimed softly, scandalized. A mother near the hearth clutched her youngest child and pulled him closer. Unmarried, she whispered, as if it were a curse. And they speak of kissing at the table? Tyler, please. No. It's not the time to talk about what happened that night, Wednesday said, her voice steady, her eyebrows lowered. From the far end of the table, a woman dropped her spoon. We're going to have to talk about it sooner or later, Wednesday, Tyler said, his voice softer now. I choose later, Wednesday snapped. Now stop talking about it, unless you want to put your hand away. Tyler raised his hands in surrender. Fine. Don't worry, your clothes will be clean and dry in no time. He smiled at her, resting his chin in one hand like he could sit there and look at her for hours. Things scurried to the middle of the room, threw his palm up dramatically, as if to say, oh well. I tried, then disappeared into the shadows. The silence that followed was thick and loaded. The word dating might have meant nothing at first, but Tyler's follow-up, we haven't kissed yet, landed like a thunderclap. The outcasts may have been from the 1620s, but they weren't fools. Kissing, coupled with the argument, the back-and-forth contradiction about being together, and Wednesday's irritated but not truly denying tone. It all painted a picture they hadn't been prepared to see. They're courting without a chaperone, a gray-haired man whispered in horror. They're practically betrothed in spirit, said another. They speak to a hand, someone else added, and that too spun the room into a deeper kind of unease. No one but Wednesday and Tyler seemed to understand the hand. It moved quickly, silently, but its gestures were treated like words, and not just by one of them, but by both. The idea that a severed hand could communicate was already too much. The idea that two people could respond to it fluently, casually, was unnatural. They talked to it like it's a man, someone whispered. Is it witchcraft? Someone else asked. Or a familiar? A girl suggested, more curious than scared. They watched from the shadows, from corners and benches, as Wednesday cut her food in silence and Tyler watched her like she was the only person in the room. They had fought side by side, blood still drying on Wednesday's dress. Now they spoke of kisses and clothing and disembodied hands like it was all perfectly ordinary. To the outcasts, it was anything but. They weren't just out of place. They were modern, dangerous, and clearly, something unspoken had happened that night. Everyone knew not to ask. But from that moment forward, they would never look at Wednesday and Tyler the same way again. While the outcasts celebrated in the warmth of their hidden refuge, children laughing, elders praising Wednesday for her courage, the man who had fled the attack burst into the quiet streets of Jericho. His clothes were torn, his face pale with terror, and his breath came in ragged gasps. She's real, he shouted. A witch. I saw her. Black dress, black eyes, she slaughtered them like they were nothing. The townspeople stirred from their homes, lanterns flickering in windows, whispers spreading like wildfire. The word witch turned heads. Doors opened. Fear crackled in the air. Joseph Crackstone emerged from the crowd like a shepherd among sheep, his voice calm and commanding. Brothers, sisters, do not be afraid, he said, holding out his arms. We will look for our sons and brothers at first light. We will bring them home. His voice soothed the people for the night, but fear never truly slept. When morning came, it did not bring peace. Instead, the sun rose to the sound of screams. In the center of Jericho, strung up on makeshift wooden crosses, were the bodies of the normies who had tried to take the outcast children. Their clothes were still on, soaked with dried blood. Their eyes wide, frozen in the terror they died with. Each crucified body was carefully arranged in a circle, almost ceremonial, almost deliberate. Gasps turned to cries. Mothers wept. Fathers stood in silent, shaking horror. It was not just a warning. It was a declaration. The townspeople looked to Joseph Crackstone, but even he could not hide the fear in his eyes. She had left no message, but one thing was clear. The witch had fought back. And this time, she had won.